What is up, you all? What is up, you all? Welcome to the Left-Handed Leftist podcast. It is so good to be back here with you all again. And we have an incredible episode this week. We're going to be talking about Charles County, my home county. We're going to be talking about data centers. We're going to be talking about housing regulation. We're going to be talking about some rent stabilization. We're going to be talking about some economic development. And by this kind of description, I'm sure you all can already guess, we will be having another candidate conversation. And I am pleased to be joined by Mayor Brandon Paulin. He is the current mayor of Indian Head, Maryland, and also a candidate for Charles County Commissioner in District 2. So before we get into it, remember you all, this is a podcast. So that means I need you all to like, share, subscribe, rate us 5 stars, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so that you're alerted every time we have a new episode coming out. And again, I cannot wait for you all to enjoy this episode. And without further ado, let's get started. What is up, you all? What is up, you all? Brandon Paulin, or should I say Mayor Brandon Paulin, thank you so much for joining us today. How's your day going on this, day after this supposed blizzard again we're supposed to have?
Yeah, happy it didn't snow that much this time, but wife enjoyed the day off. So no, day's going great. Life is going great and happy to be on.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. So, Mr. Mayor, if you can go ahead and just start us off here with really just telling people who you are, why you're running, and what you're running for, and what area that consists of as well.
Yeah, my name's Brandon Paulin. Some people know me as Mayor Paulin. Served as the mayor of the town of Indian Head since I was 19 years old in 2015 till today. I recently filed to run for District 2 County Commissioner. We're looking to bring that same momentum, that same energy that we brought to the town of Indian Head and its revitalization and resurgence to the county level. Quite frankly, my campaign is very similar to most of my campaigns. We have a proven track record of delivering results. So that's what we do in the town of Indian Head. And that's what we plan to do at the Charles County level. So we're looking to deliver results. I know less of the political maneuvering that sometimes happens at the county level. More so about actually serving the people. I know I haven't been good, really marketing myself and telling everyone what we've done over the years in the town of Indian Head. But that's just my leadership style. Is less talk, more action, more getting things done.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Well, let this be an opportunity for definitely for the folks to hear about what's been going on. And you said that you got elected mayor at 19 years old. That was the youngest mayor ever in the
youngest mayor in Maryland state history. At the time, I was the youngest in the country. So,
and what made you?
I had grown up in Indian Head. I growing up walking across to Indian Head Elementary School, kind of grew up right on the top of the hill. If you know where anything about Indian Head, but and growing up, it was like, man, there's another business boarded up, another business closed, and slowly but surely, Indian Head kind of became, a ghost town. With we have a larger installation that provides a lot of employment, in Indian Head, but the community itself, was really feeling, down in the dumps, for lack of better words. So for me, I started going to town meetings when I was 10, actually, talking about a crosswalk issue. That grew into, more of a love for local government and talking about, hey, how can we, make some ordinance changes to, address, vacant buildings and clean up and beautify the town of Indian Head, federal and community cleanups. Very much like a lot of people in politics, they get started on the activism side and then, go into wanting to take that leap into service. That's what happened to me. So when I was 19, I decided, hey, I'm going to run for town council. In Indian Head, you don't just become mayor. You run for 3 seats on the town council. The person with the most votes becomes mayor. Second becomes vice mayor, and third becomes councilperson. So going into kind of that election, there was 2 people, Dennis Chesley and Ed Rice, who had been on the town council, had been mayor, councilman, and vice mayor for almost 30 years on and off and switching different roles. So I thought for sure that I was gunning for a town council seat. Come to find out, they elected me mayor. My vice mayor, Ron Satula, who also was new to local government. And then at the time, Councilman Curtis Smith, who was also a new elected official as well. So I was like clean sweep. Kind of came in and started drinking from the fire hose, but quickly caught up and you started get to the good work of like, hey, how can we bring an economy to Indian Head where kids can grow up and have more opportunities and we can get more educational opportunities in town. We can grow up and get jobs and that sort of stuff. And it's real simple kind of small town stuff that needed to be addressed. And then also, there's the other side of it. We were, approaching 100 years as a town back then. So it was like, okay, how do we go ahead and update some of this infrastructure that's been around for a really long time? So, started working with state partners, county partners, federal partners, hunting down every grant that we could possibly get, brought in millions of dollars of infrastructure investment. Of course, the College of Southern Maryland located a presence down in Indian Head with the CSM Velocity Center. And that was really the project that got the ball rolling. That was the one, it took down our largest vacant storefront in Indian Head, over 70,000 square feet of a vacant and blighted building, and brought in CSM Velocity Center and a local contractor. Revolutionized the space. Since then, the ball has been rolling. Other areas have been redeveloped with like Maryland Technology Center up on top of the hill, the Carpenter's Garage building, and my favorite project of all time is Oasis Grocery Store. Indian Head was a food desert since 1999. We corrected that. We worked with Mark and Maryland Steel, who are great business owners in town. We did a vertical mixed use project, which a lot of people say in this county is impossible. We did it. So we have a grocery store on the ground floor, ice cream shop out front. Community garden is actively being built in the back. So we have a committee that is working on the garden piece of it, and the outdoor living company has done like a small amphitheater back there. So if anything, the story of Indian Head is the story of partnerships, getting everyone on the same page, one common mission, one common goal to do something that for 30 plus years Indian Head didn't have. And that grocery store means a lot. That means food access to a whole lot of people that wouldn't have otherwise had it, because the closest grocery store is in Bryan's Road at Food Lion. So those without transportation
And
needs have
nobody's
that
happy
access.
about Food Lion.
Yeah, yeah. So it's one of those things where we're doing great things, and partners. That's the biggest thing. No one person can get it done. Anyone that tells you they get it done by themselves, they're fibbing. But we've done great things in partnerships with educational institutions, businesses, community members. However, we need to get it done. That's been the story of IndyNet, and that's what I'm hoping will be the story of Charles County.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And before we get into the thick of it, two kind of questions based off of what you said. So when yourself, Vice Mayor Ron Satula, and the Curtis, the other council member, did you all come in as a slate together, or was it just like by random chance you all each got beat out incumbents?
It was absolutely random. I had filed, just because I was more kind of involved in the town meeting side of things. Ron was, newer to the community, and had issues related around his neighborhood. And then Councilman Smith, had served on the ethics commission, but, thought, things can be better in town government. No, there was no discussions had. It was just kind of random chance. We met kind of as we were going around knocking on doors and talking to people. But it worked out, really well. Of course, me and Vice Mayor Shatula have stayed on since then. Councilman Smith moved away to be a little bit closer to his job in 2020. But since then, Councilwoman Grumbine, or Stillwell, she recently got married. Yeah, she took over, and she's phenomenal as well. So kind of fits right in. And we've been able to continue to kind of click and have this relationship of it's okay to disagree. And I think sometimes it's like we get in these there's sometimes tensious battles or tensious conversations, but at the end of the day, it's like we're all neighbors. It's all good. Well,
Of
yeah, but
course.
we have fruitful discussions, and we leave the discussions of one issue in which we disagree and move on to the next thing as a symbiotic council that has really committed to working together.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And then the last question before we get into it, can you lay out what communities, what cities, what areas encompass District 2?
Yeah, District 2 is kind of a larger district in Charles County. So on the kind of southern end of it, you have Nanjemoy. It goes up through Marbury. You have, of course, the town of Indian Head, and then you have kind of like the larger like zip code of Indian Head. You have Bryan's Road. You have Pomfret. You have an area that goes into White Plains, and you have an area kind of off of Berry Road that goes into Waldorf, like off of Berry and Bentonville. So it is a very large geographical district.
Yeah, that's very diverse too about the people who live there, the type of economic status
Mhm.
that they're in. So no,
Yeah.
that's very diverse. With that, and you mentioned earlier about your work with the Velocity Center, your work bringing actual jobs into the district. Right now, a lot of people see that the majority of Charles County residents leave the county every single day to go to work. They go up to DC, they're going to northern Virginia, and then we also are kind of seeing the kind of backlash from the federal government of a lot of jobs being cut, a lot of these federal jobs that a lot of residents depend on. What is your goal, or what can you do to help bring not only local jobs into the district too, so less residents have to leave out of the county to go to work, but also with the infrastructure of their being, so people can safely get to work if they have to travel as well.
Yeah. One, transportation infrastructure is imperative to, one, moving people and moving people safely. SMRT is something that, I think, we continue to advocate for on the county level, but also it's like, that's a longer term solution. So, we have to continue to look for how do we meet the needs now and continue to advocate for future needs. So, looking at options to, hey, Western Charles County used to have the W-19 bus. WMATA cut that funding back in 2017, 2018. And unfortunately, was, the only person that went up to the WMATA board to go speak was a few folks from Tri County Council and myself. Charles County electeds at that time did not take a stance on the W-19 bus getting cut. And that was a huge loss for everyone that kind of lives along that 210 corridor, used that, Metro bus to get into the district and other areas. Conversely, I mean, what happens when buses and transportation is cut? That means more cars on the road. That means more liability in terms of, more traffic. That also means, higher chance for accidents. That also means more carbon emissions coming out. So those are the things that I wish more people really looked at. Uh, and then there's opportunities for different carpools and more opportunities for busing and that sort of things to get people to like say, hey, let's let's get back to, I'll call it like the pre-COVID like ability to carpool and that sort of stuff. I know a lot of people have moved away from that, but it is more environmentally conscious on that end. In terms of bringing jobs here, um, I have the distinct pleasure of having worked in Indian Head over the last few years. So, you have, of course, the base that does a lot of, science, technology, and engineering work, with the United States Navy. So there's kind of like this little like defense industry that goes there. But there's a lot of industries that, Charles County can target, like, different healthcare related fields that I would love to, sit down with EDD and say, hey, well, what are these target industries that we need to do to attract more jobs in Charles County? We're rapidly growing, and so we need more career oriented employment for folks. We don't want Charles County residents to have to leave because that means the dollars are flowing out of our community and being spent elsewhere. It also means that we have less money in our pockets because money's spent on the longer commutes. It's spent on mileage that goes on your vehicles. Those are the things that we really have to look at in Indian Head. We've brought in companies that work with the Navy. We've brought in the College of Southern Maryland that does a lot of workforce development programs as it relates to kind of those needs there. And, our contractors outside of the base as well have started doing workforce development training in STEM. Starting pretty early, getting kids interested in the career fields that are going to be available here in Charles County. So supporting all of those needs on the county level will be huge. Also, it'll be huge kind of county-wide, like how do we address bringing in some of these fields that people are really in?
Thank you. Yeah, definitely. And I know you mentioned healthcare and kind of military with the Navy and stuff. Can you kind of clarify what specific things you're looking to as far as even like what type of companies, because when you look at somewhere like Prince George's County, they it looks like they're doubling down on the whole entertainment route with the
Yeah.
minisphere, with the casino. You look at Montgomery County drilling down on like
Mhm.
life sciences and things like that. What do you kind of see as District Two's kind of niche that it can bring in businesses?
Yeah, District 2 is unique because it is extremely diverse, and we've mentioned that before. In the Indian Head realm, I think you really look at kind of the defense industry, and of course, there's a lot of fears around kind of like federal level investment when you do go into the defense industry. But what's unique about Indian Head is its study of energetics. Energetics are kind of like the things that make things go faster, right? So you think about like hypersonics and that sort of stuff. Best way I can compare it is if you've ever watched Top Gun Maverick, right? That opening scene where he's like absolutely going like wicked fast. Very similar stuff going on down at Indian Head. So as advances are going to be needed in those technologies, just outside of not the defense side of it, but you also look at the space side of it as well. There's a lot of like momentum into like doing space. Like, these are things that already exist in Charles County that can be taken advantage of, that we can go ahead and look at and say, hey, if we go ahead and put a building in Indian Head, can we get companies to fill this up? And so far we've been able to do that. Like the Maryland Technology Center, it's packed already. We've had ample success in Indian Head doing those sort of things. And your more populated areas in Charles County, there's an extreme need, for health related career paths. There's a rapidly growing population, and I do think that a lot of people kind of see these, urgent care pop here, small doctor's office here. Realistically, it's like those are meeting the needs of what we needed 15 years ago. So, really, really investing in those related industries. So I think health is big, the energetics, which is very niche, but very important, but kind of encompasses the whole defense side. And then, Prince George's, in College Park has kind of adopted that, the quantum computing side of things. But I would also encourage, Charles County residents to look at how quantum computing can, bring advancements to, health sciences and the energetics field. So maybe that's something that we look at, how quantum computing will affect those industries in the long term. And maybe that's something we can partner with like a University of Maryland to look at bringing down into our area.
Okay, yes, definitely, and we'll definitely get talk about that a little bit later. And even to your healthcare point, I'm glad you brought that up because yeah, in a county of around 180,000 people, it's ridiculous. We just have one hospital all the way in La
Exactly.
Plata, not even
Yep.
where the most people live at. So I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on what is your vision to bringing more healthcare access. Does that look like bringing a hospital within your district? Does that look at like we've seen now, just a flooding of urgent cares and a doctor's office here and there, and tell people if something goes wrong, either go all the way to La Plata or might as well go to Prince George's County at that point?
Yeah, and those are the things that, we really genuinely need to drill down on, because urgent care doesn't meet the immediate needs of everybody. So we have urgent cares and primary cares, but when it comes to emergency services, we don't have a lot. When it comes to surgical services, we don't have a lot. So, there's a lot of surgeries that are outpatient that, many years ago were, hey, you're staying in a hospital. So is there opportunities for, outpatient surgical centers that can take care of some of the needs of our residents without us having to go up to National Harbor to a surgical center, or, having to go to Northern Virginia, over to Inova. I know, my neighbor, he just had a hip replacement and he was outpatient. And I'm like, how do you have a hip replacement and it's outpatient? But I mean,
Gosh.
that's just how, things are done now. It's more recover at home, monitor, but that's just how technology is now. But even that, to go to an outpatient surgical center for his hip replacement, he had to go to Northern Virginia. So those are the certain things that I'm like, okay, we can address those issues. Of course, hospital care has a lot of rules and restrictions as it relates to building a new hospital. But let's communicate that with the community, because they say, "Oh, a new hospital's not coming," but they don't explain the why, right? They don't explain the rules, regulations, the population needed, or the density of people in the area that shows, hey, these are how many hospital beds that are needed to justify the next, building of a hospital. So let's have those community conversations, with economic development, with our elected leaders, with quite frankly hospital leadership, and say, hey, why don't we have one in Waldorf? What can we do to better situate ourselves in the future to get one? And then where would that go? What does that look like? And get community input. And I don't think those conversations are being had. And I would love to help lead an effort.
Great. Two things about that. One is that I have done looking into different hospital kind of models. One thing I would definitely push to you and just the viewers is looking at what's called a freestanding emergency room, where they just have an emergency room separate than a whole hospital because it takes less money to run it, but it's also a way for if people just need those immediate emergency services, they can get that. And then the second thing is, do you feel as if the current commissioners aren't doing enough to address the healthcare? Because as we see, there was this big thing of, oh, we're going to build a Kaiser within Waldorf, which we haven't heard about that for years. No one even knows what's happening to it, and you haven't really heard commissioners talk about how we're going to bring healthcare access or anything, or even the jobs from healthcare. What are we going to do?
Yeah, the Kaiser project is an interesting one because it was quite frankly it was a huge investment in kind of a healthcare need, and Kaiser doesn't just pop up those campuses anywhere. So I thought that was going to be a huge, kind of alleviation kind of on Charles County's larger healthcare network. But the status of that project we haven't heard of in a while. So those are conversations that, hey, what's going on with this project? What's holding it up? Why haven't they, invested that time yet? Or why haven't they started breaking ground on it? So those are things that I think are more appropriate to be out in the open, and that way everyone knows. And I'm sorry, what was the back end of that question?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Do you feel that the current commissioners aren't doing enough, or particularly the commissioner who's in District Two now is not doing enough to address the healthcare needs in your district?
So healthcare is one of those things where it's a constant investment. I look at an area like Western Charles County, like like Indian Head, like Bryan's Road. We have two doctors' offices. We have one University of Maryland primary care in an old bank building in the Bryan's Road Shopping Center, and we have a smaller doctor's office that's a little bit further down the road of Bryan's Road, and that's it. So the same way that I look at access to food and food disparity, people absolutely need access to, at a bare minimum, primary care doctor. So what are we doing, or what is EDD, or what is the county at large doing to bring more health services down? I know the Charles County Health Department actually does do a mobile clinic down in Nanjemoy, which does provide a lot of assistance to the people in Nanjemoy. And I give them ample credit because it's an extremely rural community, and they are more isolated than I think any other community within Charles County. But how do we do more of that? How do we get more funding to do some of those pop-ups, or quite frankly, do a brick and mortar established area where we can go into these more isolated areas of the county and bring health services? Because we've seen it at even a school level. That's one project that I can take a lot of pride in, is we partnered with Indian Head Elementary School, and we are building Charles County's first school-based health center. Yeah, this is an awesome project. Years ago, the community schools nurse at Indian Head Elementary kind of approached me about this idea, this concept about a school-based health center, and this would allow kids, at Indian Head Elementary and surrounding schools, to be able to get access to either a nurse practitioner or pediatrician, depending on who's staffing it that day. But while they're at school, to be able to get these needs taken care of, because what's one of the largest reasons kids don't go to school?
Yeah,
One of them
healthcare,
is because
food.
I'm not feeling good. I don't have food. I don't, those basic fundamental needs. So how do we take care of those basic fundamental needs? Well, Indian High Elementary School's done a phenomenal job. Shout out to Marissa, who's the community schools coordinator over there. She's done a phenomenal job, created a whole food pantry that's essentially a grocery store for the community for this.
That's
Um,
amazing.
Couple that with the school-based health center that's being constructed right now at Indian High Elementary School. The kids will be able to get all of the food that they need, not only during the school day but during the whole week. They'll be able to have access to doctors for when they're not feeling good. That way they can get to their absolute best and get back in the classroom and focus on their education. If you take care of the basic needs, and this is stuff that we should be doing, right? Like the basic fundamental stuff is like making sure that everyone eats and making sure everyone's healthcare is like taken care of. Like that is the core to anything. And especially, as a government, we should be, helping those people up and bringing them in. And then, after those needs are taken care of, then the kid, can functionally sit down and take those tests and work on the education. But when a kid, goes hungry, he's not worried. He's not worried about, what 8 times 8 is.
Thank you.
When he's sick, he's not worried about, his multiplication tables or
Having perfect
division.
grammar. Yeah.
Exactly, he's hungry, he's sick, and those are the needs that need to be addressed first. We've the town has helped Indian Elementary, meet those goals, apply for grants, do those things, and we should be doing the same thing on the county level.
That's amazing. No, that's definitely great about the previous work experience that you've had in doing this locally and wanting to make it bigger. I'm glad you mentioned Nanjamoy too, because we look at Nanjamoy as having huge disparities when it comes to not just healthcare access, when it comes to job, transportation, when it comes to basically every metric of a thriving community. Nanjamoy is consistently being put down. And you even look at their basic infrastructure, people not even having indoor plumbing within their
Mhm.
homes. And I want to know from you, what is your plan to address these I hate to even call them concerns and issues because these are like habitability issues. So what is your plan to address that given that we've seen just commissioner after commissioner after commissioner talk about it but never actually do anything about
Okay, so I have this idea. It's micro grants, right? I mean, that's how you really start to address this situation. Is you have to be kind of proactive, and being proactive in an extremely rural community like Andamon is hard. But when there are issues like you said with indoor plumbing, with the accessibility to like the basic fundamentals, these are issues that have to be addressed. Luckily, I got to say, Mount Hope Nanjamoy Elementary School. Kudos to them, not just because my wife works there, but they were also recently designated as a community school. That means that some of these kids are able to get that access, or you're starting to be able to get access, to more food, more resources. Parents are able to get that access too. So that's a good first step. So kudos to Charles County Public Schools for getting Mount Hope Nanjamoy to be a community school. Layering in, we need to start talking about like how can we get money into the people's hands to correct some of these housing issues,
it?
and habitability issues. How can we get, at the county level, fundamentally get these micro grants to say, hey, you don't have a active well, you don't have, your property doesn't perk. How can we fix some
Don't even have
sewage
the
issues here?
pipes for this in their house.
Exactly, exactly. So, how can we address this? And I do think it's through the ability in creating kind of a micro grant program that can help pay for some of these issues. The people that are living in these conditions, it can get access to the money to pay for it. It's in an area in which is far out there, and a lot of people really don't have a lot of thought process towards that way. But I've seen kind of firsthand within that community growing up in the area. Of course, my wife grew up in Nanjamoy, so there's a lot of connections down there, and folks need help. It's like how can someone in Angelmoy without transportation access have access to anything? I mean, literally anything, any basic needs. They don't. I mean, your community is extremely rural and it doesn't even have a Dollar General, and so these folks are heavily reliant on their own community. Kudos to the folks that live down in Angemoy that drive folks to the grocery store when they need it, that really look out for their neighbors. But there's also a level that Charles County government needs to play. You know, more Van Gogh access within the Nanjamoy community. And there's a few stops and a bus that goes through, but you miss that, then
You're
what are you doing?
SOL. Yeah.
Exactly. So
And then how infrequent the Van Gogh runs as well is another problem for them.
exactly. So it's not an effective means of public transportation. It is a means of public transportation, but it's not effective. So how do we how do we get more of that down into Nanjemoy so people have access to it? Because it's going to be hard to get business to invest in a community that's that rural and that spread out. But you can bring the goods to the people. We can do things like bring a bus down that has some of these needs. We utilize the mobile market strategy in Indian Head before we got Oasis. The mobile market would pop up at our senior center once or twice a week. That way seniors and people in the community could go to this. It's basically a decked out bus that was like a grocery store on wheels, and they were able to shop at this grocery store. So those are the little things that if elected District 2 that I could help coordinate, bring down to the Nanjemoy Community Center, bring down to the school. That way people have, ample access.
Thank you for that. And kind of two more questions on the Nanjamoy part is when you say micro grants, are you talking about where it's as someone from Nanjamoy, they would pay for the service to get the plumbing and then the county would reimburse them the money?
So this is going to be a more bold take of mine. Reimbursable grants are good if you have money. When you don't have the money, you consistently sit there and are like, well, I can't pay for it. So reimbursable doesn't do anything when the money's coming 6 months later, but you have to make a decision whether to keep your electric on or fix your indoor plumbing. So my thought process would be we become more hands-on. We work with Charles County businesses that are interested in helping the folks of Nanjemoy. We go ahead and put out an RFP, request for proposal, from these businesses about this grant program and get them on board. If we get them on board early, we get them invested in the mission, but we can go ahead and have more synergy as it comes to hey, here are some folks that responded to our RFP, from your selection list. You as a property owner or, renter can go ahead and look through these. These are, kind of a recommended vendor list of licensed, folks that responded to this RFP that want to help, and serve people down in Nanjemoy. And then the county kind of pays them outright through the grant program.
That's awesome. No, it's awesome. And definitely that was one of those like questions too. I was wondering how it goes because again, you see people now talking about, oh yeah, we'll just reimburse them for doing the work. A lot of people there don't have the means to
Hmm.
even do that. And another big problem that they've been facing is that because a lot of these are heirs property, so it passed down deed to deed to
Yep.
deed. I don't have the deed, so I can approve this certain work
Exactly.
we're getting done. So that's a great thought you have of kind of the county taking a hands-on approach to do it in the front. And then my last question on Nanjamoy is what is your plan to address the current like developer spike that we see within Nanjamoy? You have developers and these kind of house flippers going in offering families like $10,000, $20,000 for their property that's really worth millions of dollars and then turning their Nanjamoy properties into like waterfront properties selling for millions of dollars at the same time.
It messes up metrics. $1 million kind of like waterfront homes, it messes with metrics because when you have an area like, okay, you may have $2 million homes, but a large amount of the area is actually under the poverty line. Are we making sure that those people are still getting the assistance just because the overall zip code meets a certain income threshold? So those are definitely things that, like, you sit there and go, "Oh man, this is a problem." So, for and it's a tough issue to tackle too, because as a county, you can't say, "Hey, you can't buy this land down here," but also as a county, you mentioned the air problem where these people might not have deeds, might not know, what they have, hosting, some legal assistance, see if you can get folks and lawyers down, to the community center to talk with folks that might have, those issues that need to be addressed and get them on the best path forward because just because they don't have the means to go ahead and hire a lawyer to kind of like combat some of these issues doesn't mean that they don't deserve to enjoy and live within their communities. So, there's gonna be kind of that initial kind of fight back in balance of all of that. But you mentioned, a lot of kind of the house flippers down in Nanjemoy, and that's gonna be it's gonna be a challenge because one, just getting people to understand the value of their property, and then two, getting people to, within the Nationwide community to come out and express how they want their community to look like. I would say a majority of Nationwide residents actually do enjoy being rural, but that doesn't mean that they should sacrifice the amenities. I do believe in keeping Nanjamoy, rural, and keeping Nanjamoy, smaller. But I also believe that folks' basic needs should be met, and I think we can address it through some of those. Finding some sort of legal service or lawyer that's willing to come down, pro bono, and just have these discussions, get some of these deeds kind of like, ironed out, because a lot of the times it just goes generations and generations and generations. And it's like, yeah, that's my great great grandmother's name now. There's 24 possible heirs, but I'm the one living here. So how do we, how do we iron this out? And quite frankly, it's got to go through the legal system to get ironed out. But, provide the resource.
Definitely. And I think that's one of the problems. We see that people are kind of leaving the Nationwide residents to be like, hey, you're rural, so that means you should have a unlivable situation. And I'm actually glad that you mentioned it. Just because you're rural does not mean that you shouldn't be able to live in your area as well and prosper.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I was so surprised when I started dating my wife. I go down to Nanjing all the time, hang out with her, and I don't have data on my phone down there. And at the time, there was no internet, so this is like pre Think Big, right? So I mean, they did not get like any sort of decent internet access until Think Big came in. But that was a big, huge deal for them. To be able to get some level of infrastructure investment. Kudos to the person that drew up that franchise agreement that got Nangeway covered. Even though, Think Big is a smaller vendor, they ran the fiber down there. But also, there's the issues of people with longer driveways, in the private roads. It's right there along 224 and Route 6, but it's
It's
still
ambulances
three
that can't even
miles
get
from
on
my
people's
house.
properties. Yeah, it's
So
ambulances that have told people like we can't come on your property, so something
yeah,
happens. Oops.
yeah, exactly. Those uh, anything can be, especially as it relates to like personal property, can be addressed via micro grants, right? We've done like facade grants for businesses or beautification grants, within the town of Indian Head, and there's kind of outlined programs that address, these things that other communities are doing. So, in Indian Head, we're like, okay, well, we want, businesses to kind of improve their signage, really kind of dress up the 210 corridor. So we did facade grants. Many businesses took advantage of it. So you can do that on, not just the business side. It can be, individual property owners. So I highly encourage a lot of people to look at that, and it can build a case study for what other communities can do. Hey, look at what Charles County is doing, providing, access to running water, infrastructure improvements while still keeping, the community the way they want it, which is rural.
That's definitely that's a great idea. I love that. And then with that kind of as we kind of shifting into a housing conversation as well,
Yep.
what are your thoughts around the housing within Charles County broadly, but also with your district specific? Because as we look at right now, there's a battle within the commissioners board to say we don't need affordable housing. Oh no, we do need affordable housing. Whenever houses get built here, it seems like it's 500 or half a million dollar
Mhm.
single family homes or 400K plus townhomes. There is really no affordable housing at all. And we're kind of letting, and then also the quality of housing. We see housing getting slapped up like quick, fast, and in a hurry. And then you have people yelling at the board of commissioners talking about, I don't have topsoil, my foundation's cracking and things like that. What is your kind of solution to the housing issues that we have within the county?
Man, Carlos, you're going to get me on a tangent.
Let's go.
All right. Affordable housing is absolutely and 100% necessary. Like, I think anyone that's tried to buy a house over the last 5 years, especially our age, like in your 20s, early 30s, yeah, good luck.
Yeah.
Absolute good luck. It is tough out here, strictly because Charles County does not have starter homes. That's it. I mean, a lot of commissioners saying that we don't have affordable housing or we don't need affordable housing simply isn't looking at the people that actually serve the county. They aren't looking at teachers. They aren't looking at, sheriff's officers. They aren't looking at literally the people that work within the county every single day. Like you can't afford to buy a $500,000 house when your starting salary is $54,000. It will like the math doesn't math. So we need more affordable housing, 100%. All right. And quite frankly, we need to pay the people that serve within our communities, like our teachers. We need to pay them. Those are those are the basic fundamental things, right? Like if a teacher within this county cannot afford to live in this county, of course we're going to have teacher shortages. 100%,
Plain
right?
simply,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, my biggest thing has always been I want to make a community where you can live, learn, work, and play, right? Live means that we should have a housing stock and a housing affordability level for anyone. That means entry level housing. That means, hey, I am now making a better income in my 30s. Cool, you can move up. Like there should be ample housing for every stage of life in Charles County, all the way from starting to senior. And what we're seeing is we have a lack of affordable housing. So that's one thing. Learn. Everyone deserves a quality educational system. All right. Everyone should have access to quality education, not only at the K through 12 level, but also at the higher education level. So work. Everyone should have the ability to be able to work within their community and have career oriented employment. And then play. You mentioned a little bit about the entertainment. All right. Nightlife ain't super hot in Charles County. All right. So, it's very seldom that you hear about something really cool going on in Charles County. So, we've done our best in the town of Indian Head to try to appeal and do different events kind of on the weekend throughout summer. I say that Memorial Day to Labor Day is kind of like Indian Head's how do we get people to come down here, visit the town, you know, quite frankly, that's what helps drive the economy in the evenings. How, where are people going out to eat? Where are people going out to eat and then going out and doing something? So we have lots of places to eat. That's cool. But if you're in your 20s trying to meet
Do we have
someone,
quality places to eat? That's another
yeah,
question.
yeah, yeah. And if you're in your 20s trying to meet someone, like where is that place?
DC.
And those are kind of the issues that I think aren't thought about as much, and it comes down to creating kind of a sense of place in different areas within Charles County, a sense of place of where people want to be. Like, hey, where's that main street that has those bars that people really want to go visit, that has those bands that people want to go see, that nightclub that, it's like, hey, I'd love to go there, to go have fun and unwind after a hard week at work. Charles County does. So adding those play amenities outside of, and I think Charles County does recreation really well. I think we do parks really well. In Indian Head we do.
Okay, there we go.
I was gonna say we have a park in darn near every neighborhood in India.
Wow. And the reason that I kind of put that caveat
Yeah.
face in there is that we have parks, and then maybe this is more centralized to Waldorf, or actually no,
Yeah.
throughout the whole county. You don't see like recreational like tennis courts. You don't see
Yes, sir.
basketball courts. You don't see like any of the other recreational other than just like a park area, maybe a little pavilion, and then
Mhm.
maybe a
Well, that's true.
baseball field, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, you do have very cookie cutter parks, and that does, and I do think like tailored baseball. Like, yeah, baseball in Charles County was really huge 25 years ago, and kudos to CCYL for like keeping baseball alive. In Charles County, I was a baseball kid growing up, so I love baseball. But things change and interests change, and kids aren't doing as much baseball. Diversifying the park assets are huge. I look at you know, we're building the new park with a community garden back behind, Oasis Fresh Food Markets. That will have, an amphitheater where we're able to do, community movie nights, or we're able to partner with like the Indian Head Center for the Arts and the Black Box Theater to be able to do outside performances. And people can come sit on, a natural amphitheater, lay out their towel and enjoy their time. At the pavilion, we successfully had multiple jazz in the country kind of days over there where we had food vendors, folks were able to grab a glass of wine, sit out on the back pavilion lawn where like jazz just like literally serenades you for hours on end, and it was like nice and relaxing. But then we tune it up for the 4th of July. It was like, we had some rock bands on the back. We had
Okay.
tons of rides for the kids, food trucks galore, enough funnel cakes to like make your stomach bust. So, trying to like, get an event for everyone,
Hmm.
like even on the town side, this has been something that we really strive to, whether it be small, whether it be large, whether it be a festival, whether it just be like a community movie night, is something that we really strive to do, and something that I actually challenged like every community to do, because you don't necessarily need the government to be able to like say, hey, host your own movie night. One of the coolest things, and it's probably the only cool thing about COVID, was the amount of people that, within the community, like we weren't allowed to host, large scale events. However, people got really creative with, how can we maintain social distancing, but still have some semblance of a place of community? And, there's this one neighborhood in the town of Indian Head. The person literally hung this big bed sheet on the front of their house and then projected movies for like the neighborhood kids. Just
Awesome.
that would that take? It was like a projector, a DVD player, and a bed sheet. But that was kind of like the start to like some of the town of Indian Head movie nights was that idea, and it was like, my goodness,
That's awesome.
like, why haven't we been doing this? Like, that whole neighborhood loves it. We could do this at the Village Green and make it much larger scale. So, but yeah, that's the play part of it. So I got way off tangent
No, you're
from
good.
the
No, you're good.
housing
No, you're
question.
good. I was getting ready to bring you right back around there.
But yeah, affordable housing is needed. People should be able to like live in the community that they grew up and lived in their whole life. So senior housing is also needed, and not everything should be so damn expensive. We have to look at everything, and this is one key metric of my campaign. You have to look at everything through a lens of affordability, because if we're not looking at every decision we make through that lens, we're doing an absolute disservice to the people of Charles County.
No,
Because if we continue on this track of not looking at affordability, we're all going to be.
yeah. And where everybody's going to leave out the county, it's going to be
Oh,
three families
100%.
there, and that's it.
Yeah, exactly.
And to even to your point too, we definitely need to, as a county, have a conversation even on what affordability looks like as
Hmm.
well, because what could be affordable to someone in Waldorf may be different than Indian Head or Nanjamoy or La Plata and things of that nature. Two more kind of housing questions. One's a real quick,
Hmm.
kind of a yes or no, but I'll give you a chance to kind of expand on it if you want. Do you support rent stabilization within the county as well?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, a tiered rent stabilization, like, naturally, like, I'm not for setting the bar and then never moving the bar, because costs have gone up for everyone. Inflation has gone up. But I do believe that they're like, if a house is $2,500 to rent, in 1 year, rent should not go up to $3,000, a calendar year. There should be, percentage increments, in limits on what you're increasing by.
Would you say like how you have in Prince George's County, they have
Yeah,
3%, or from Montgomery County, I think it may go up to like 5 or 6. Would
yeah.
you have like, hey, like one percentage for the entire county, or would you talk about it as like it's tiered as far as like, well, if your home was this to this, you get 3%, this to this 5, and up and up.
I think more the tiered approach is more feasible. It, and
Different than the other
actually,
counties?
what? So this is an interesting conversation, and not one that I've actually kind of thought a ton about. So I mean, if you do it by a kind of flat percentage basis, I mean that should be able to work. Yeah, I mean, all right, yeah, you
Okay.
convinced me.
Awesome. I
So
love that. See?
yeah, I hadn't thought about a ton on that one, but yeah, I mean, rent stabilization, there has to be something done with levels of rent. But I'll also look at. I've been paying a mortgage for a couple years now, so haven't paid rent in a while. But
Yes. As someone
even my
who,
mortgage cost has gone up, and I'm like,
right.
damn, like, come on, guys.
No,
But
you're
yeah,
right.
no,
And as someone who
something
knows,
to reduce costs, and keep more money in folks' pockets, because you shouldn't have extreme rent hikes from year to year just because the market says so. Yeah, I mean, you got to cap it at some percentage.
yeah. And what we've
Three,
been
5, I don't know. I don't know what that
okay.
number is. I'd have to look more into data.
Yeah. But you're
But
definitely open to, or you support rent
100%.
stabilization as a program. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And then Yeah, definitely, because as we see that the majority of times when property owners raise their rent, they're not doing it as much because of, oh, the cost that I assume. It's how
Mhm.
much more profit can I get? Because you can have their fees go up maybe 2% and they may charge 5% to go up as well. So it all depends, and it all changes. But one other
Maybe make it directly related to how much their taxes assessment increases, right? So
maybe
like if your house went from like 320,000 on a tax assessment to 325, and that percentage increase is the only percentage that you could pass on to your renter. I don't know, just
that's a
thinking
good
about
idea. That's actually a good idea for
well,
that. I like
like
that.
legitimately, because that
Yeah,
would actually like kind of looking at like, hey, this is the cost of like that you legitimately have increased, and then you can only legitimately pass along that cost. So I mean, that's I don't know, just thinking out
I
loud.
like that. No, that's a great idea. That's a great idea. I never even thought about that process myself. One last question on housing: what's your plan to hold developers accountable who continue to build all of these expensive but cheaply made homes?
Yeah, that starts right within planning and growth management. I mean, when they say that they're going to build a home, it needs to be completely to code. Inspectors, of course, come out and sign off on these things. But in my mind, it starts with of course, the planning commission holding kind of higher level of building standards. We've done pretty well with that, within the town of Indian Head. We require, certain levels of building within the town of Indian Head, specifically within certain zones. Like, hey, we don't want just all vinyl, you know, townhomes being put up. Like, give us, some layers, some different consistency, different elements. Like, make sure that we have stone and brick facades that are going to, look good long term. Making sure that, foundational concrete isn't poured when it's pouring down raining outside, just for the sake of time. But these are the things that I think really can be addressed, with your inspectors, with the folks that go out and do these quality checks. Yes, there are a lot of homes, and I'm sure they're overstretched, in terms of inspecting these homes, but that doesn't mean you just sign off on it. Like we want to really keep the quality of homes, that are being built within the county, long term. I grew up in a house that was built in 1930. It's still standing, it still functions, it still works, and it still looks good.
There we go.
Why? Because there were building standards, and I think we made a decision kind of as a whole populace, kind of like nationwide, long ago, that we were going to ditch building standards to just
Slap up
make more
homes.
money. Like
Yeah,
I don't quite understand that. But yeah, I'm highly, highly, highly like interested in like sitting down with BGM and saying, how do we hold the folks accountable to making sure that the building standards are good so this house lasts 100 years?
awesome.
Because that's what everyone deserves. The American dream was created when when communities were being built where it was like quality homes. Like a 2x4 was actually a 2x4, and it's like those homes last multiple generations because they were constructed with quality. So let's continue to construct things with quality and make sure that our inspectors and our PGM department holds.
Definitely. Thank you. Thank you. And transitioning over to one of our last topics here is on data centers within the county. That has been one of the biggest conversations within the county in their current, because the county is currently looking at pushing through a zoning text amendment that would allow the construction and permitting of data centers. We recently had the planning commission come out and had their first work session and talked about how you had 2-to-1 opposition from residents against even having a ZTA to allow data centers. I want to ask first, what is your thoughts on data centers coming into the county?
Do we have the infrastructure? We have to be answering or asking the right questions. Do we have the ample amount of infrastructure to provide for the data centers? I think also there's the concept of like, people need to understand like why there are kind of these pop-up of data centers everywhere. It's because you keep on posting artificial images of yourself on Facebook, okay? So like please stop. Stop doing that. All
Please say
right.
that again for everybody, because I have been so angry seeing candidates and everyone just posting
Yes.
these like AI images and then talk about data centers a bad thing. Yes, it is a
Oh
bad
my
thing.
gosh.
Stop
The
posting these things.
contradiction is killing me. Why? Okay, I'm gonna calm down. But like, why are you posting AI images of yourself that literally use, I think it's like 1.2 liters of water, and then those same people are going and saying, I'm anti data center. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm not anti data center because I understand the need of data centers and why we've gone to that, right? Everyone has a Google Drive, everyone has those sort of things. However, like the only way that we should be allowing data centers in, if we can answer, do we have the infrastructure? Do people want it in their communities? And like, is this an actual benefit? And if those questions could be answered, then yeah, we have something. And I'm not talking about answered just by the folks building the data center.
Yeah, right.
I'm talking by, the whole community, by independent, folks that are able to say, okay, yes, we have infrastructure. No, we don't have infrastructure.
Do
So
you
those are questions that I think need to be answered. The
do you think that the
ZTA
okay.
is, I think came about quick, probably because of different things going on in the background, but those are things that we really need to answer, because if we're not confident in those answers, we're setting up our community for failure. But yeah, like please, and I'll echo this again, please stop posting artificial images of yourself to
Gosh.
anyone listening. And if candidates do it, like, ooh,
Yeah.
I'm saying something.
Thank
um
you.
I can't stand it. I
It's a
hate it.
disgusting it's one of the most disgusting things that I can see. I even saw, and this is a whole tangent, I saw someone who's running in Baltimore County, I think for county executive, they were they had a whole like, hey, we're gonna make a video by AI. And then at the end of it said, yeah, AI isn't that good. Maybe we should ban data.
Hey, Declan, is past Super Bowl ad done yet?
It's not on our to-do list. Also, we're a public finance campaign. We can't afford that.
Just use one of them AI websites. After the Super Bowl ads, going to use AI anyway.
All right.
When do you think this can be done?
Oh, it's done.
With the big game going on, the race to win the Baltimore County Executive starts now. My playbook is simple. We need more affordable places to live, better basic services that utilize our tax dollars, and decisions made in public. No trick plays, no backroom huddles. If it can't.
So what do y'all think? I think I nailed it.
Who is that guy?
We can't run this.
What do you mean? It's you in a suit. It has your logo.
That wasn't
It's-
me. That wasn't even a game plan on the background.
Yes, it was.
I don't know. Maybe we should consider banning data centers.
Centers. Well, hold up. You just used
No.
all this water to just tell us in the end we shouldn't have a data center while using data centers for this. It's insane. But even to that same conversation, since you said that you feel like the ZTA has been rushed and kind of just like moved through, do you feel like the ZTA should be withdrawn by the current board for there to be a task force? I know that currently Commissioner Bowling is has made mentioning of putting forward a motion to withdraw the current ZTA and to put a community-led task force. Is that something that you agree with, or how do you feel like it should move forward from here?
If you withdraw the ZTA and do a task force, um, doing the task force doesn't automatically assume that you're actually getting public input. And I think we've seen that sometimes at the county level, where we're put together a task force, of folks that, are pushing it, or folks that are just immediately against it.
Or I guess better yet, would you say a task force made up of like residents, made up of like environmental advocacy groups, unions, even shouting out the coalition, the Charles County Against Data Center Coalition. So you have a mix of groups that are for, against it, but also mainly residents who are
Yeah.
there.
I mean, mainly residents.
Okay.
As a part of the discussion, because at the end of the day, this is your community. We need your input, and those, I don't know whether you need to withdraw the ZTA or just put it on the back burner. I'm not, those are different discussions. And then does the ZTA lead the discussion for the task force, or are we taking a completely new approach? Those are the different things. Is ZTA something that can be amended to make it amenable to the task force? Those are all different things. At the end of the day, if the public gets actual input into the decision making, that's where I'd be comfortable. It's if the ZTA is changed to where reflects what a majority of the public wants, all in. If the ZTA needs to be withdrawn and we start from scratch, and that's what the public wants, all in. So it's
As the ZTA is currently,
yeah,
do you support it or not?
as it is right now.
Yes,
Yeah.
as it is current. Okay.
No. I think it leaves a lot of problems in kind of openings for the county. I think we need to regulate this a little bit more. And it's a tough decision. I mean, I think a lot of the data center proposed locations are kind of in, Waldorf, and I know the TerraWolf, one at the Morgantown area is that District 1. So I feel for the residents in those communities, and it's like, man, come out, talk. And that's one thing that I can absolutely commit to is like, call me, email me, I'll respond. My wife dislikes how much I respond because sometimes it's 3 a.m. I'm rolling over responding to texts and emails. So, but that's the kind of person that I am. I don't like to leave communication just kind of out there. I like to, respond, talk in forums like this, talk in forums, with community meet and greets, which by the way I'll be having two in March. So, but yeah.
That's awesome. And then kind of one like clarifying thing with the data center. The reason that I kind of pushed about withdrawing the ZTA is because one could look at it as if we have a task force set up that, in my mind, the task force wouldn't just look at the ZTA. It would look at regulations as far as legislation. It would look at as far as like, what do we need data centers to give to the community to be able to come in, whether it's investments in the school system, things like that, just overall, the overall regulation, union construction, things like that. I think that one of the issues that we could see is that if we allow the ZTA to move while a task force is set up at the same time, you
Hmm.
could have that kind of like in between period where if the ZTA gets like passed and then the task force comes in and says, actually, we should have all these regulations that aren't mentioned in the ZTA, you could have data centers get that grandfathered in period where it's like, hey, I got my permit. Let me go ahead and build my stuff real quick. So now you all can leave me alone.
And that's valid. So I completely understand that. That actually makes a lot of sense to kind of put the regulations in place first before allowing kind of any permitting process. So yeah, I mean, a temporary pause might be adequate, or
Like a
a temporary
moratorium type of
pause
thing.
on the ZTA sort of deal,
Okay.
or temporary pause on any allocation of data center until, maybe you get some of those questions and things ironed out. Um, you know, uh, Actually, that's brilliant. Yeah, get the regulations in place first. That makes the most sense before you have something that people don't want and you regret.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for that. And then last two questions. One is a total Waldorf question for
Okay.
you. Is as the mayor of a current municipality, we know that Waldorf being one of the basically the largest city within in Charles County, would you support as a commissioner Waldorf becoming a municipality? But I'll kind of caveat it to
Okay.
where if residents petition, they get the right number of signatures. Would you support putting the municipality on the ballot, even if it is parts of the municipality charter that you don't agree with?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
So look, and this is you're speaking up my alley with town charters. So I mean we are look the most unique thing about municipalities and towns and cities across the state of Maryland is we are the closest to people. We have the ability to, when someone gives us a call and lets us know there's a pothole on their street, we can fix it. When someone gives us a call and lets us know that, um, you know, hey, it's raining a little bit hard and there are a few kids that stand out at that bus stop and you can't really see them. How about we put a stop sign here? We can do it. And that's what the whole campaign is about, is delivering results, allowing the people of Waldorf to go ahead and incorporate and make their own municipality. I would be overly abundant to support that. And
Awesome.
and quite frankly, the benefit of a town charter is the people get to write it, right? And that's what's beautiful is you can perfectly tailor the needs of your community within the document. right? We have measures of accountability, on the town level, that we don't have, that La Plata might not have, or that Waldorf might not have. We have, responsibilities of the town council, that La Plata doesn't have, or vice versa, and that's what makes it so unique. Town of Indian Head, we don't have a police department, but La Plata does. And at some point in time, their residents said, they might need one, and they were able to go ahead and implement through a charter amendment. Those are what I mean. I cannot tell you enough how much I would advocate for communities becoming their own municipalities, because it works. It really does. It creates a level that is closer to the people at a county level. Yeah, you're competing with one out of 100, 60,000 or 170,000. At a town level, you're competing with the three people that decide to come into town hall and have a conversation. So I couldn't support it enough.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank
Yep.
you. And final question is really a softball question to you
Okay.
is, what would be the first two pieces of legislation that you would like to propose?
Accountability measures.
What type of accountability measures?
I mean, for me, is creating, of course, there's been the topic of, the IG office, within county government. I think an IG office would be fantastic to hold elected officials accountable. So I'm all in there. And then, I mean, for me, I'd like to introduce a whole load of accountability measures, just because, like, let's set guardrails, right? Like, let's be responsible to the people, and those measures haven't been put in place first. And then, man, you're throwing me softball after softball here. But for me, I think the second one, and I mentioned it kind of earlier in the call, would be the micro grants. For that Nanjemoy community, I'd imagine there's some sort of legislation or legislative priority we need to put before there. And I'm going to go off of more than two, and I'm sorry here,
Please.
but you know, of course, charter was voted down, and there were a lot of things that I heard from lots of folks, back and forth about the charter amendments. But if you read my op-ed, that I wrote in the Maryland Independent, last year, as to why I supported charter, it was strictly accountability measures. Thomas Paine had this quote that, a group of men essentially holding themselves accountable to themselves will never do it, right? Is essentially the quote, but I butchered it. That's what I'm about. I'm here to serve. I'm here to the right thing, not the easy thing. And those would probably be my first kind of go aheads, is implement the accountability measures that were widely supported in charter meetings, not only by left, right, center. Everyone agreed, and everyone suggested, okay, if we're doing this thing, there needs to be accountability measures. I don't think anyone disagreed with that, and those are the things that people want to see, and of course, charter got voted down, and you can do it by code home rule. You just need commissioners with, quite
Three
frankly,
votes
yeah, you need 3 votes, right?
and a backbone. And a backbone
And a
is one.
backbone and a spine. So yeah, I have one, and I would almost instantly like get that before the commissioners to vote. A lot of those accountability measures that were mentioned, just because let's hold ourselves accountable. If we can't hold ourselves accountable, how can we expect to hold anyone else? And that's just kind of the bottom line for me. Create the guardrails. Force us to work together and not play politics with people's lives, because that's no fun, and it does nothing for the county. It makes sure that we can't deliver results, and I'm all about delivering results. So let's set our guardrails and go from there.
That's perfect. And I know I said final question and you just made me think
And
of
no, you're
more.
good.
So real quick is that and actually this is a two-part question. One, let's say you do win, would you still come back on my podcast, or just talk to different people? Because a lot of times we see elected officials, they'll do this going running, and then once they get in, I don't want to talk to nobody. I don't want to let anybody know. And then, or you're saying yes to that, thank you. And then the second question is, would you participate in a debate with other candidates, different than a forum where it's just like, here's one question, go down the line? An actual debate where you get to actually have a concrete discussion around the different ideas and the different policies that you want to put in place.
I would absolutely love to debate the other candidates in this race.
So
I would love to be able to put them on the hot seat on their record versus mine and show them what delivering results for the community is really about. I'm not a good politician. I don't market what I do well. And I'm brutally honest about this. Outside of Indian Head, a lot of people don't know what's going on in Indian Head, and that's because I'm less interested about the politics of it, and I'm more interested in actually the helping of the people, right? So I would love to debate, my counterparts, and yeah, have those discussions about like, hey, where have you been the last 80 years? Where what have you been doing to benefit the community? And yeah, how have you made Charles County better in this decade?
I love it. I love it. And then last one, before I give it over to you to tell people how they can stay engaged with you and your campaign is, do you think that the current commissioner, Thomasina Coast, has done a good job as a commissioner?
Man, Thomasina is very polarizing, amongst a lot of people. Of course, I've had, chats with her about Indian Head priorities, and she has been a supporter of those Indian Head priorities in my elected role as mayor. I think there's certainly things that, could have been done better, and that's if I didn't think, if I thought everything was going swimmingly at the county, I probably wouldn't have run for office, right? So I do think there is a need for more vocal leadership and folks to, like myself to step forward and get out there and deliver more results. I do think more things should have happened and more results should have been delivered for District 2 over the last 8 years. I can tell you she has been a huge supporter of Indian Head and our priorities, but with Brandon Paulin, you're actually getting a champion, a community champion that's going to take things from the starting line to the finish line. I truly believe in getting projects done, not just sitting around and holding a spot.
Awesome. I love that. I love that. And I know I keep saying this last question. This will be the
You're
final
fine.
question
You're
for
fine.
you.
You're fine.
Is during your campaign, are you planning to reject money from developers, the real estate lobby, things like the police union, or are you going to take money from those different PACs as well?
So far we've raised about $4,500, all individual contributions over the last week and a half. I don't, in my mind, I don't see a need for PAC money if we keep on getting individual contributions. I know my counterparts that are running would sure like some of the individual contributions that I've seen in my campaign based on political campaign reports that I've seen for the 2026 year. So of course, all of these kind of labors and special interests, all of them come out during election time and have these conversations. So I'll say I'd appreciate their support. I don't think I'll take their contribution, but that's kind of where I'm at right now. We're doing a great job fundraising. I'll give a huge shout out to my call time team at Down Ballot. They are great folks. Joyce is keeping me on track with all of our fundraising goals. And if you want to donate, visit Act Blue or votepolin.com/donate.
Awesome. And with that, Brandon, Paulin, please tell our viewers how they can get involved with your campaign, stay interested, keep up with the updates, everything.
Yeah, votepolin.com, guys. We have a couple different tabs on votepolin.com, a delivered results tab that kind of goes through all the good things that we've done from, shoreline restoration, some of, the only shoreline restoration projects taking place in Charles County to, I mentioned affordability on this call. I plan to look at everything through affordability. I mean, we've done a lot of good things at Indian Head. So I try to do my best telling that story on the website. And then, there's my future priorities as well that kind of lay out, what I do plan on doing, what my focuses are. And then, of course, at the very end, you can click that donate button. The fact of the matter is, campaigns cost money and it sucks that they do. So, we've had individual contributions from normal folks that live in town all the way from $5 up to 1,000. I was absolutely surprised that an individual would donate $1,000. Literally, it was a neighbor of mine, lived um, in Indian Head, and he's like, I genuinely believe so strongly in what you did here in the town of Indian Head that I want to give everything I possibly can to your campaign. And I was like, bud, you don't have to do that. But he's like, no, like you have fundraising goals to meet. We want to make sure that you meet them. And we want to make sure that, this campaign, gains the momentum it needs to get into, the other districts. I know 7-2 like the back of my hand. But I'm hoping to learn about, 1, 7-3, 10-1, 3-1, 6 dash, I mean, all of them. Like I need to get in all the voting precincts. So yeah, reach out via the website. You can email me at brandonpaulin@gmail.com if you're interested in volunteering. And if you're already in my phone, you'll be getting a call time phone call at some point over the next few weeks.
Awesome.
We're trying to do the right thing and get as many individual contributions as possible, because at the end of the day, it's Charles County, it's your county, it's your community. I would just be the person holding the seat, listening to you and making the decisions based off of what you want.
Awesome. And before we go, do you want to tell people how they can show up to your events in March that you're holding?
Yes, we have two meet and greets in March, completely free of charge. I do not believe that you should have to donate to me to get access. That's not how I operate. So, okay, March meet and greets. We have March 14th. So that's a Saturday morning from 9 a.m. to 11 at Clarity Coffee Shop in Indian Head. That's 4175 Indian Head Highway. And then our meet and greet in Bryan's Road will be at the Potomac Branch Library at their meeting room Saturday, March 20th. That's 3225 Ruth B. Swan Drive. So I'm encouraging everyone to come out free of charge. Like if you want to bring a donation, fantastic. I would be greatly appreciative of it. But come out if you have any questions. I'm an open book. You can email me, you can call me, you can come to my meet and greet, see if you like me. And that's it. We'll keep on hosting these meet and greets throughout the campaign. I just announced the March ones because I just got those locations kind of locked down, but we'll have them in April, May, and June because I just believe in access. I mean, I see
That's
so
something we
many
don't have a lot
campaigns.
now.
Yeah, I see so many campaigns. It's like a paywall for access. And that bothers me so much because I know as a 19-year-old mayor that was trying to get politically connected, I literally could not afford to go to political fundraisers because I can't afford to pay, $250 for a plate. That's not
Piss poor food at that.
Thank you. So those are the things that's like, yes, I will have, those fundraisers, but those shouldn't be the only ways to get access. So, hosting these meet and greets, I'm probably going to try to do 2 every month, in different communities, starting in Indian Head and Bryan's Road, hopefully kind of go over into Waldorf in White Plains once we find locations. Some of these will be at folks' houses as we're going along the campaign trail because that's just the most affordable option. And other times we'll be at local businesses. So,
Awesome.
yeah, highlighting the whole county as we go along.
Thank you. And you all, please remember this is a podcast, so please rate us 5 stars, hit that follow button, notification button, everything you have. This has been an amazing conversation, and we'll see you next Wednesday for the newest episode of the Left-Handed Leftist podcast. Thank you so much.